Have you ever really thought about what happens to your body after you fall asleep? I mean, we think of it as this quiet, still time, right? But for some people, the night is when this strange, hidden rhythm takes over. Today, we're going to dive into that fascinating world where movement and sleep collide.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with how our bodies are supposed to work during sleep. Then we'll get into the big mystery: what happens when tremors just don't stop? We'll peek inside the sleeping brain, untangle the vicious cycle that can get started, and finally, look at how doctors help people find some stability.
All right, let's kick things off with section one, the body's rhythms. Before we can understand what's going wrong, we've got to know what's supposed to go right. So let's start with a really basic question. When we drift off and start dreaming, why don't we actually start running around or acting everything out? What's putting on the brakes? Well, the answer is actually this amazing built-in safety feature. Our brain essentially disconnects our muscles, putting us in a state of paralysis. It's called muscle atonia. This kicks in most strongly during REM sleep, when our dreams get really wild. It's literally there to protect us from ourselves. Okay, so let's be super clear about what we mean by tremor. This isn't just a random twitch. The key word here is rhythmic. Think of a steady, back-and-forth shaking, like a metronome. It happens because muscles are contracting and relaxing over and over in a consistent pattern. And this is where a lot of people get mixed up. I'm sure you've had that feeling of falling right as you're drifting off and your whole body jolts awake. That's a hypnic jerk. It's sudden, it's a one-off. A tremor is totally different. It's all about that relentless, repetitive rhythm. So that brings us to our next section. We've established that the body is supposed to be still at night. So what happens when these rhythmic movements just ignore the memo? That's the real mystery we're exploring. Now here's what's so fascinating. For most people who have tremor conditions like Parkinson's or essential tremor, sleep is actually a relief. As they fall deeper asleep, the tremor usually fades away or disappears completely. That's the normal, expected pattern. So when that doesn't happen, we call it a sleep-related tremor. And here's a key point. This isn't a disease itself. It's more of a description. It's a label for when a tremor is breaking the rules, persisting, or even getting worse, when it should be taking a break. And this rule-breaking behavior can be tied to several underlying causes. We see it a lot in Parkinson's and essential tremor, sure, but it can also be triggered by things like nerve damage, certain medications, or even disturbances in your body's metabolism. Okay, to really get why a tremor would stick around at night, we need to pop the hood and take a look at the brain's incredibly complex command center. Our ability to just pick up a cup of coffee without spilling it is thanks to this constant chatter between different parts of the brain. The basal ganglia kicks things off, the cerebellum keeps it smooth, the thalamus handles incoming messages, and the motor cortex gives the final order. A tremor is basically a sign that there's some kind of glitch or bad signal in that network. I absolutely love this analogy because it makes it so easy to understand. When you're awake, your conscious brain, the cortex, is the day shift. It's in charge. But when you fall asleep, the night shift takes over. That's the brainstem. And its top priority is to shut down almost all movement so the body can rest. So here's the kicker. If a tremor is still happening while you're asleep, it means those faulty rhythmic signals in the brain are just so persistent, so loud, that even the night shift manager can't shut them down. It's a huge clue that the underlying problem is pretty significant. This brings us to what might be the most important part of this whole puzzle. Because the link between tremor and sleep isn't a one-way street. It's a really nasty, vicious cycle. Let's just trace this out because it's brutal. First, the tremor itself makes it hard to even fall asleep, or it wakes you up. Obviously, that means you're getting poor quality sleep. Well, guess what? Being sleep-deprived makes the tremor even worse the next day. And all of that, the shaking, the exhaustion, ramps up your anxiety, which then makes it even harder to sleep. And you can see how it just spirals. And it's worth knowing that other things can be pouring fuel on this fire without you even realizing it. A number of common medications, things like stimulants or some antidepressants, can actually make tremors worse as a side effect. And of course, withdrawal from things like alcohol can be a massive trigger. Okay, so with this really complex picture, how do doctors even begin to investigate? And more importantly, how do they help someone break that cycle and find some stability? Well, it's a very methodical process. It always starts with just talking, getting a detailed history and looking at every single medication. Then comes a neurological exam to really check out the tremor. And in some cases, they'll do a full sleep study to literally watch and record what the muscles are doing all night long.
And this is so, so important. There's no one-size-fits-all pill for this. The treatment absolutely has to match the root cause. If it's essential tremor, the approach might be beta blockers. If it's Parkinson's, you're looking at therapies that target dopamine. And hey, if anxiety is the main driver, the best treatment might not be a pill at all, but things like relaxation and therapy. And this is a point that can be a real game changer. Sometimes the best way to quiet the tremor is to fix the sleep itself. A condition like sleep apnea, for example, just shreds your sleep quality. If you treat the apnea, sleep gets way better, the whole nervous system calms down, and very often, the tremor improves right along with it.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway of all this. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. Stable sleep supports stable movement. They aren't two separate things. They are deeply, fundamentally connected. And understanding that connection is really the first and most important step to finding balance in the rhythmic night.